Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we're going to head through to Edinburgh once again, and we're going to revisit a brewery who do some really pretty damn nice IPAs and things like that. So we're going to go back to Stewart Brewing once again, who I believe are from Loanhead in the south of the city, and we're having a taste of the Skeleton Blues, which is an American wheat ale at 5.2%. Now this beer was rated 88 overall in Rate Beer, and it got a 98 within the American wheat ale category, which makes it one of the top 50 wheat ales in the world according to the website, so it should be a pretty nice one. This beer actually won the homebrewing competition from the Institute of Brewing and Distilling back in 2015, and the maker of this beer was James Morton, who is now one of the co-owners at Out of Town Brewery over in Cumbernauld. So it's quite an interesting beer in that regard. That was also what they did with the First World Problems as well. I think the First World Problems beer that they did was the winner back in 2013 or 2014. So these beers that Stewart Brewing commercialise from the Institute of Brewing and Distilling always tend to be pretty good. So I'm definitely looking forward to this one, and I hope you guys enjoy my review of this beer. So anyway, as is usual with my reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery. If you want to get straight to the tasting, of course, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews I've done from Stewart Brewing before. I'll probably put the links in there to Out of Town Brewing as well, since I guess this one in some way is a kind of collaboration beer, but there's all the usual social media. If you want to see more beer reviews, do consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel, of course, has a geography-based tagging system, so you can go into the homepage and search for beer based on country, city or state, whatever it is you're interested in. Do check out the playlist of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the Scottish beers that I've reviewed for you, and that's being added to whenever I can, of course, because I do live in Sweden now these days mainly. But as always, please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys, and the support that you give the channel is hugely appreciated. So anyway, to tell you a little bit about Stewart Brewing then. So Stewart Brewing was founded by Steve Stewart and his wife Jo, but Steve is actually a graduate of Heriot-Watt University in Edinburgh, who are of course a famous brewing and distilling school these days, but he worked for several breweries including Base Brewery in Ireland and in Birmingham in England, of course, and also at the Harpoon Brewery over in Boston in America. So while working in Birmingham in 1998, Steve built his first microbrew with the help of his father-in-law, who owns a steel fabrication company. So Steve wanted to return to Scotland, and so he left his job with base in Birmingham to move to Edinburgh in 2002, and he started to put things in place to form the microbrewery, and production began in January of 2004, with Steve having developed all the trial brews in his mini microbrewery before he commercialised them. So Steve worked hard to secure a bigger production facility, and he eventually settled on a location in the Bilston Glen Industrial Estate on the south side of Edinburgh, which I believe is Loanhead, if I'm remembering correctly, if that's the right name for the district. But while this site was being completed, Steve actually brewed his beers at Strathaven Brewery until the first batch was produced in late 2004. But since foundation, the brewery have proved to be very, very successful, and they've done a number of special beers, and they've got a core range of beers as well. They've got a core range and a hop series, as far as I know. The hop series, the Capi and the Radical Road, those are probably, in my opinion, the best beers that they do, along with the First World Problems, which is one of their, as I said, that was one of the other beers that won the Institute of Brewing and Distilling's competition. They also have their craft beer kitchen, where they allow people to buy brew days at the brewery, and then you can go and brew your beer with Steve, which is pretty cool. But these guys, as I said, they're a very, very solid Scottish craft brewery. So if you come across some of the Stewart beers, I'd highly recommend either First World Problems or the Capi and Radical Road. Those are some really, really quite nice beers. It's actually raining, so you can maybe hear a little bit of a rumble in the background of this video. But yeah, that's all you need to know about this brewery just now. So as I said, I'll put all the links in the description below, and you can have a look at those yourself. And as I said, the guy who brewed this beer originally for the Institute of Brewing and Distilling in 2015, he now owns Out of Town Brewing, and I reviewed my first beer from them a few videos ago. So I'll put all their links in the description below, and make sure you check out that review as well. So anyway, let's get on to the tasting of this beer itself then. So like I mentioned to you, this one is a 5.2% American wheat beer, and it's got some really nice artwork, as you normally get from Stewart Brewing, and they've just started canning their beers as well. There you can see, this is actually some really nice artwork. This is maybe the best artwork I've seen so far from Stewart Brewing. There you can see they do have their symbol down here. It's almost like the SNP symbol a little bit, actually, the kind of gamma thing, which is often cancer research and stuff like that as well. But I do like the symbol that they have on their on their beers. It says on the side here, American wheat beer, a wheat beer by recipe, a high hopped pale ale by proportions, yeast, banana and biscuit softness with a sherbet lemon tang, a seamless combination of floral and exotic. From the capital of Scotland, a city steeped in brewing history, Stewart Brewing are producers and pioneers of innovative and award-winning craft beer. So brewed and canned at Stewart Brewing in Edinburgh. So yeah, this one's got wheat and oats in it as well, and barley in the malt base, so it should be quite interesting. Best before the 6th of February 2018. But yeah, really nicely presented, like I said. So without further ado, let's get this guy open and we'll get on with the tasting. So looking forward to this. I'll maybe label this video actually as a collaboration between Out of Town Brewing and Stewart Brewing, because I guess that's probably the most accurate description. So yeah, but as I always say, it's cool to return to Stewart Brewing. I always try and make an effort when I'm back in Scotland to review one of their beers, because it is always cool to try different things from them. But I'm not sure how often they are releasing different things these days. I'm sure they were doing some sour beers recently, but mainly they do kind of specialise in the likes of pale ales and IPAs and stuff like this. That's maybe one of the things I'd say about Stewart Brewing. They're very, very capable, and I'd love to see them kind of experiment with some Scotch ales and imperial stouts and stuff like that, because certainly the IPAs and stuff that they do are very, very good. So yeah, as you can see with this beer, I'm not sure how well you're seeing the colour in the light. I'll bring it closer to the camera for you, but it's a really nice kind of quite bright kind of slightly orangey yellow colour. It's definitely the typical colour you'd expect of a Hefeweizen or an American wheat beer. There's a solid finger of a frothy white head on this one. There's one or two big bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass. There's one or two very small little bits of sediment at the bottom there, and I can see some little bubbles just going up towards the bottom of that head there, but overall it looks like a really quite nice beer. So yeah, let's take a closer look at the aroma and see how we get on then. It smells really quite tropical actually. Of course, the American wheat beers, from what I understand, they do tend to use a little bit of Pilsner malt and things like that in them, and some oats just to kind of thicken it up. But it works out really nicely. They're always really just a little bit more hoppy than the original German Hefeweizens, which tend to be very low IBU. But this one smells really nice. Of course, with this you're getting what you would expect. There's a little bit of that kind of banana and sort of clovey element. You can definitely get the wheat and a little bit of that oaty character in there as well. Maybe there's a little bit of a kind of clove spice to this one, but overall the malt base on this is very, very smooth and rather sweet smelling. I can pick out a little bit of biscuity sweetness in there as well, which is interesting. It's not quite as hoppy. From what the description I read of this beer, it's not quite as hoppy in the aroma as I was expecting, but there's a lot of nice kind of tropical fruit in there. There's a little bit of a sort of mango and passion fruit thing. There may be a little bit of orange as well, but I'm getting a good bit of apricot from this actually. It definitely does have a little bit of that apricot-y note, and maybe, I think, yeah, mangoes and apricot are probably the most dominant notes, but I can get a little bit of a kind of tangerine orange. I do wonder if there's perhaps some mosaic in here, or some yeah, maybe more mosaic than Amarillo. It's more of a tangerine note than it is a kind of orange. If it's a slightly stronger, juicier orange, you tend to, yeah, I would expect more Amarillo. But if it's a lighter kind of tangerine note, for me that's when it indicates mosaic. And mosaic, of course, can be responsible for some of these kind of lighter, juicy tropical fruits as well. It has a little bit more complexity to it, I think, than the Amarillo does in terms of fruits. But it smells like a really nice beer. It's not, what I would say about the aroma of this one is it's not the most punchy aroma, but it smells as if it's very nicely blended. There's a little bit of grassy character coming out from the hops as well, but it smells really quite nice. But it's not the most kind of, it's not the aroma that's going to jump out at you, but it does smell very nicely done. So as I always say, just take a little bit of time and mull over the aroma of your beer before you actually get stuck into it. But we'll have a go at this one now. So this one is the Skeleton Brews from Stewart Brewing. It was brewed originally by James Morton, who's now one of the owners at Out of Town Brewery in Cumbernauld. It's an American wheat beer at 5.2%, and it's rated 98 overall in rate beer. So let's get stuck into this guy then. Slanja. Yeah, that's pretty damn good. You know, a thumbs up, I guess, both to Out of Town Brewing and James Morton and to Stewart Brewing for this. This is really quite nice. The first thing you're going to notice about this beer is just how smooth it is. I mean, right away it comes in across your tongue, and it does feel as if it's a little bit cask conditioned or something like that. It has that typical smoothness to it, but it's got a really good blend between the nice sweet malt base and these kind of juicy tropical fruits. That's the thing, it reminds me a lot, it's got the same kind of feel to it as the Cap I did actually. It's got that nice juicy hop character to it. I do wonder if there's maybe some New Zealand hops in here actually. But yeah, that's pretty damn good. I'm not sure if this is a limited edition or if they'll continue this one. But regardless, I'd recommend that if you come across this beer, definitely have a go at it, because it's another really pretty damn good brew. And if this is what home brewers in Scotland can actually come up with these days, you know, it indicates a really good future for Scottish craft beer. As I've told you before, when it comes to Scottish craft breweries, there's a good number of them actually brew the traditional style beers, the sort of English real ales, the Scotch ales and stuff like this, and there is some of them tend to go more towards the American style beers. And so it's maybe about 50-50. I guess it really depends on the age of the people that start the company. But I guess probably Scottish craft beer has tended to lean a little bit more towards the traditional beers, but there are more and more breweries popping up and brewing the American stuff. And you have to say, that's pretty good if they're doing things like this, and I do hope that more of the home brewers that are brewing things like the guy who brewed the First World Problems, hopefully he gets involved in craft beer as well, and I hope that these guys do get a little bit more involved in it as well. Or I should say they already are, because they're in Out of Town Brewing, but I do hope they get a little bit more prominence. But, you know, James Morton, thumbs up to him for that. That's a really good beer. That was a silly thing to say. But yeah, let's examine the flavour of this beer a little bit more closely. And as I always say, just sugar the beer around your palate and take a few sips before you actually start to analyse the flavour too much. So, in the middle of the palate, there's a nice sort of bready base to this one. On top of that, you can taste some of this kind of wheaty, oaty smoothness. In the middle of the, right in the middle of the palate, I'm getting just a little bit of a very slightly biscuity note. You can definitely feel the banana and that sort of bready, yeasty character. Just kind of, to me, it comes out a little bit more right around the edge of your tongue, just before you start to get the hoppy notes. But this one, it's not too kind of banana and sweet in comparison to some of the German, in comparison to what some of the German Weizens would be. The malt base on this one is just a little bit smoother for me, and it has a little bit of that biscuity sweetness, which is definitely quite nice. But it's very smooth, like I was saying. I do like how this one comes across. It's got a lovely, it's almost, in a way, I guess this one could be a little bit like a white IPA, to be honest with you. I don't really know where you draw the line between the American wheat beer and the white IPA, of course, because I think they do use kind of oats and wheat malts and things in that as well. So that would be an interesting thing. I need to research that a little bit more. But it really does have more like of an IPA kind of a hoppy quality to it, and the hop, I'm finding the hop bitterness builds a little bit as you go further on through this beer. But in the back corners of the palate, there's a teeny bit of earthiness. As you come further forward, it does get a lot more floral and kind of spicy. There's not really pine raisins to this one. It's more a spicy kind of floral aromaticity around the front curve of the tongue. It's lighter and grassy. And then if you just go behind the front curve of the palate there, that's where you get this little oily bubble where these nice kind of fruity, juicy esters come out. Yeah, it's definitely leaning towards the tropical side of things, this, for me. I think there's a little bit of, there is a wee bit of passion fruit in there. So I do wonder if there's maybe a wee bit of Simcoe. It does have a little bit of that. There's a good bit of mango, which makes me think Citra as well. It doesn't say what hops they're using in this one. I'm kind of guessing a little bit. But at the same time, it does have a little bit of that juicy character that you would normally expect of the New Zealand hops. So there may well be a couple of New Zealand varieties in there. I'm not quite sure. But it's got a little bit of, to me, there's a good bit of apricot-y note coming out of this. I'm getting that in the flavour as well. I mean, at the start, it's mainly passion fruit and a little bit of mango. I'm not sure, there's maybe a little bit of a kind of orangey, tangerine kind of note in here as well, but as you progress further and further, I think you do start to get a little bit of a sort of apricot-y note coming out of this one. And it starts to get, maybe there's a little bit of kind of papaya as well. It's definitely leaning towards the tropical side of things, and that's what makes me think there's maybe some New Zealand hops in here as well. I'm really not sure about that, but the main point to take away from this is that it's a really nicely done beer, so I can see why this one won the Institute of Brewing and Distilling Award back in 2015, and I guess this kind of sets a sort of, it raises the bar quite high when it comes to Out of Town Brewing as well. I enjoyed the last beer I had from those guys, which was the Northeast Coast IPA, which was a sort of, it was kind of like a hybrid between a sort of English style bitter and a New England IPA, so it was a really kind of unusual flavour combination, and it worked. And I suppose that's what craft beer is all about. It's all about experimenting and things like that, and it does show the quality that they're going to have over there at Out of Town Brewing, when this was one of their very kind of first beers, if you like. So a big thumbs up both to James Morton and to Stewart Brewing for this one. It is a really quite nice beer. It's very well balanced as well, so if you like a nice kind of smooth kind of white, if you like a nice kind of smooth wheat beer base with a little bit of tropical fruit, I think this one's going to suit you down to a T. The IBUs on this one, it's not too high in terms of bitterness actually, but it's just a nice kind of flavour combination overall. I think that's a good way to sum up this beer. In terms of the mouthfeel, I would say it's mid-bodied. The carbonation's quite smooth. It does have quite a creamy mouthfeel to it actually. There's a little bit of hoppy bitterness, and it also has some juicy fruit notes as well. There's a little bit of sweetness there in the malt base. The malt base overall is quite smooth, yet quite sweet. And the mouthfeel, it has a little bit of oily character to it as well, which suits the fruity side of it, especially the tropical fruits. But it's also got this kind of smooth, creamy notes that kind of suit the wheaty aspects of the beer. But overall, it's really quite nicely done. So if you get the chance to try this one, have a go at it. As I said, I'm not too sure if this one is a limited edition or whether it's a seasonal brew or exactly what it is, but I guess if it won the competition back in 2015, they've probably released it at the start of 2016. It's now 2017, of course, so they probably are brewing it fairly regularly, but the artwork on it is cracking as well. So overall, the main thing to take away, this is a pretty awesome beer that I do think you need to try. It's probably the best wheat beer actually, the best kind of, I don't know if it's right to say the best sort of wheat ale, I guess, just to generalise. It's probably the best wheat beer I've come across in Scotland so far. So a big thumbs up both to James Morton and to Stewart Brewing for this one. So yeah, it's been really cool to return to Stewart Brewing once again, and it is cool to find one of the beers that started off Out of Town Brewing as well, just after I reviewed their my first beer from them too. So make sure you check out both breweries in this, of course. But as always, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. I hope you've enjoyed this review. Until the next time, please do check out my social media, all of that kind of jazz, but make sure you have a look at some of the Stewart Brewing beers and some of the Out of Town Brewing ones as well. They're both producing some really quite nice stuff. So thank you again for watching, and I will catch you guys very soon. Until the next time, it's Slanja just now, and I'll see you very soon. Cheers. The Skeleton Blues from Stewart Brewing in collaboration, I guess, with James Morton from Out of Town Brewing. Cheers.